show, and thank you again for joining us. We've got a review of some of the chilling effects. I've got some short little videos from around the country as a nice update. We've got some powerful video that I just got 5 minutes before the show. Thank you, Lorraine. And thank you guys for sending these things, and I do my best to scramble and put this stuff together in time. And it gives us another media link that actually emphasizes the forged documents used to foreclose and how can that be legal, and why are those entities, banks, foreclosure mills that are filing them not going to prison like we know that you and I would if we did one document, and they've done millions. So what is that about? And some action that we can take. So I'm going to actually start with From Russia with Love. You need to read this. I'm going to read parts of it out loud. It was written in 2009, and it's talking about the snuffing out of capitalism. And it was improv. It's just truly such a twist to be thinking of the people in Russia actually looking at our country going, what are you guys doing? Why are you just giving up without a fight? What is going on? So I know that you're awake, I'm awake. We need to get others awake and active and working. So there are legal tools, and I'm going to discuss again eminent domain. I'm going to bring to your attention so that you have some links in the comments about these issues, because these are some tools that our local communities can use, and I personally believe that we need to use them and use them as fast as possible to protect ourselves. I'll explain more in a minute why I say that. And then, of course, there is legal recourse. We do have the authority, the ability to file lawsuits for Fourth Amendment violations. So we'll talk about that. And then I want to bring to your attention Nolo Press. It came up in a conversation last night, and the person I was talking to didn't seem to even know anything about it. So I'm gonna start trying to share with you some of the tools that I use, that I know that's available, so that make sure that everybody knows this. Pass it around, put it on your Facebook page. Announcements real quickly. Tomorrow is a really heavy-duty day. Actions all over the place. In fact, we're just listing again the Santa Barbara Pink Party, the Los Angeles action and Move Your Money Against Wells Fargo, Petaluma, Move Your Money Against Wells Fargo. And tonight I've been invited to be on the Full Circle Show, KPFA. So you can just log in and listen to from anywhere on the planet, www.kpfa.com at 7 o'clock from 7 to 8. I'm not the only guest, but the focus is on foreclosures and also how HOAs, believe it or not, HOAs have foreclosure authority. And it's really scary. I swear, most people that go into an HOA, and it could be a condo homeowner association, or it could be even a large community, like I know Hidden Valley Lake in Lake County. These are all homes on lots. They all have an HOA. Every one of you ever considering buying or are even in an HOA now, you need to pull out those they call them CC&Rs, conditions, covenants, and restrictions. You need to look at them. And so we're going to be talking about what some of these CC&Rs actually say and how actually scary it is for the individuals that theoretically think they own the property and then discover, whoa, it's not just the bank. I'm current on my loan. Why is the HOA foreclosing? These are scary times. So let's start right away with From Russia with Love. This is a link. Notice, this is written in April 2009, 3 years ago. And I want to read just a couple of the paragraphs. You can finish it yourself. I'll summarize it. But basically, we're giving up and we don't even know what's going on. It must be said that like the breaking of a great dam, the American descent into Marxism is happening with breathtaking speed against the backdrop of a passive, helpless sheeple. Oh, excuse me, I meant people. Well, we already know we use sheeple ourselves. True, the situation has been well prepared on and off for the last century, especially the last 20 years. So if this was written in 2009, think back, 89, 99, 2009. Fits right in those 2 decades. Catherine Austin Fitts says the same thing. William K. Black says the same thing. They're talking about, the fraud, the bank corruption, the prosecutions. We know that that's when MERS started happening. Securitization started in the mid-90s. So, absolutely, they've got it right. The initial testing grounds was conducted upon our holy Russia, and a bloody test it was. But we Russians would not just roll over and give up our freedoms and our souls, no matter how much money Wall Street poured into the fists of the Marxists. Those lessons were taken and used to properly prepare the American populace for the surrender of their freedoms and souls to the whims of their elites and betters. First, the population was dumbed down through a politicized and substandard education system based on pop culture rather than the classics. Come on, they're telling us exactly how they did it. So look at this article, think about it. We obviously need to fix education. Americans know more about their favorite TV dramas than the drama in D.C. that directly affects their lives. They care more for their right to choke down a McDonald's hamburger or Burger King burger than for their constitutional rights. Then they turn around and lecture us about our rights and about our democracy. You can continue. This is truly an indictment. And they basically say the final collapse has come with the election of Barack Obama. His speed in the last 3 months has been truly impressive. His spending and printing money has been a record-setting, not just in America's short history, but in the world. If this keeps up for more than another year, and there is no sign that it will not, America at best will resemble the Weimar Republic and at worst, Zimbabwe. Hasn't happened yet. That's, I believe, an indication to the amazing control that these banksters have over the media. They've kept the lid on what's going on. There is no panic, even now with the stock market gyrating, wham, wham, because of Bernanke saying, oh, gee, maybe in September we'll stop our $85 billion, we'll taper. And so now it's like, oh, which just goes to show you that everybody that's in the market depends on the money printing for their profits. It's just an indication of what's really going on. And the fact is that gold is still below 1,300. It's dropping. Gold and silver both are declining. So there's such a humongous disconnect. I just want to bring that to your attention. Just remind you again today about that. So, are we going to let it go without a whimper? We're rising up. We're trying not to. One of the issues is we're not connected. There's these issues over here, these issues over there, this group over here and there. We need to connect. That's what we've been talking about. I wanted you to hear what the Associated Press is actually saying about these illegal record seizures. The government is, they're starting to act in the open. And so we're starting to talk about it, and it's starting to get some mainstream coverage. But is that enough? I don't know. Here's what this says.
Well, the administration has come under fire lately for its secrecy and lack of transparency, from revelations of the NSA's widespread surveillance program to snooping on journalists. We have seen scandal after scandal. Today, Associated Press CEO Gary Pruitt spoke at the National Press Club about the chilling effect all of this has had on the media.
Some of our longtime trusted sources have become nervous and anxious about talking to us, even on stories that aren't about national security. And in some cases, government employees that we once checked in with regularly will no longer speak to us by phone, and some are reluctant to meet in person. Now, the government may love this. I suspect they do. But beware the government that loves secrecy too much.
Pruitt says the Justice Department violated its own rules in obtaining subpoenas. According to the Justice Department's own rules, they're supposed to make these searches narrowly drawn, and they're supposed to notify news organizations before obtaining or seizing their records. Pruitt says neither of these things happened in this case.
So this was an unprecedented intrusion into AP's news gathering records. We had never seen anything like this before. And it was an intrusion by government officials that was so broad, so overreaching, so secretive, that it violated the protective zone that the First Amendment provides journalists in the United States.
Well, the Justice Department has described the leak in this case as very serious and possibly posed a threat to national security.
This is among, if not the most serious, it is within the top 2 or 3 most serious leaks that I've ever seen. It put the American people at risk, and that is not hyperbole.
The AP maintains that they did not, or they held off on publishing this story until they were sure it did not pose a threat. And the AP is not alone. The Justice Department tracked and obtained emails from Fox News reporter James Rosen, a CBS reporter, recently came out saying that there was proof that her computer was compromised. Now the Obama administration is giving Attorney General Eric Holder until July 12th to come up with improvements on this process of obtaining information from the press. In Washington, Liz Wall, RT.
They always get a break. This is what? Middle of June to the middle of July. Okay, let's just give them a month to basically figure out their story. No prosecution, this is the point. We're frogs in the pot. And in 2009, the people in Russia, the reporters in Russia, were starting to write about this. You gotta see this. It's really short. It's about GMOs in our food chain. The Food and Chemical Toxicology Journal in New York published the findings of the first ever long-term peer-reviewed feed trial. It explored the long-term health impact of consuming GM, genetically modified maize. And this was on Wednesday 19th of September 2012. It's the world's most popular herbicide, Roundup.
This is the first time that a long-term animal feeding trial has examined the impact of feeding GM corn or the herbicide Roundup, or a combination of both, and the results are extremely serious. In the male rats, there were liver and kidney disorders, including tumours, and even more worryingly, in the female rats, there were mammary tumours at a level which is extremely concerning. Up to 80% of the female rats had mammary tumours by the end of the trial.
What sets this study apart from all previous studies is primarily the duration. It's the first to have looked over the entire lifespan of the rats, 700 days. Anything previously has only looked out to 90 days. So the severe adverse effects that accumulated over time in these rats only began to appear 4 months after the study began, and then escalated from then onwards, which means that all the previous studies, which were only up to 90 days, just missed the impact completely.
GM corn is widely grown in America, and millions of tons a year are being imported into this country and fed to pigs, chickens and dairy cows. So we're eating the GM corn processed through animals. In the case of Roundup, it's the world's most popular weed killer. It's advertised on television for use in people's gardens. It's used on a huge scale growing crops in this country. And residues at levels which this research trial suggests could be harmful to human health in the long term are finding their way into our food.
The research was conducted by a team of scientists led by molecular biologist Professor Giles Eric Seralini and supported by the independent research organization CryGen. For more information, go to research.sustainablefoodtrust.org. It's in the food chain, guys. Is it any wonder that Japan and Europe don't want our GM wheat? They don't want any contamination. They're calling it contamination. And we're already eating the animals and the food, the grains that have been, if you will, infected or changed. We're eating this genetically modified stuff. It's in all of our cereals and packages, and there's no notice. This is truly amazingly shocking. Here's a link in case you want to look more into the TWA Flight 800 alternative theories. And just for your information, because the alternative theories state the crash was due to either a U.S. Navy terrorist missile strike or an onboard bomb, I want to bring this to your attention that now the realtors, the Association of Realtors, which sometimes is on board with what I think and most of the time is not, nevertheless, they're finally getting on board with the rising home prices are unsustainable.
Let's get more on that housing report from Diana Olick. She's got the full numbers for us. Diana, what more can you tell us? Well, Kelly, there was a big beat on the 4.2% increase. We were looking for just under 1% month to month. It's up 12.9% from a year ago, the highest since November of 2009, which you remember was right before the expiration of the first home buyer tax credit. The big story here is prices. The median home price in May came in at $208,000 even. That's up 15.4%. from a year ago, the highest since July of 2008. Remember, this is partially due to a mix of home situation. When you look at the median, which is the middle of what's selling below and what's selling above, homes priced on the lowest ends are down 10% from a year ago. Homes priced more expensively are way up from a year ago. That is shifting the median home price higher. But also you are seeing strong price appreciation due to very low supplies of homes for sale. The realtors are actually calling these price increases, quote, unsustainable. They say given the increases in employment and in wages, it is clearly unsustainable to have a 15.4% price increase year over year. We're looking at inventories up very slightly, 3.3% to 2.22 million houses for sale. That represents a 5.1 month supply. Days on market, though, are shrinking dramatically for a traditional home, down to just 39 days to sell a home. That's down from 72 days a year ago. Also, investors are still in the market. First-time home buyers, though, still just 28%, down from where they should be at around 45%. Back to you guys.
Did you catch that? First-time home buyers are down to 28%. They normally should be at 45%. So the engine is missing. Half the engine is gone. The other half is the investors, the cash money coming in. And a lot of the investors have decided to back out because prices are too high. It's natural and normal that they would make that decision. And did you notice all those charts that were going by as she's talking? Down, down, down. That's because today the stock market is down and all the indices are down because of what Bernanke said. So just think about it. Remember, 1/3 of the home transactions are cash. They were in March. So if people start to get afraid that they're going to be losing money, do you think they're going to buy more property or buy less property? Let's mull that over, because if they buy less and first-time home buyers are down, it will have to pull down prices because there will be fewer buyers. It's always a supply and demand. And if interest rates rise, which is what they've been doing, now mortgages are above 4%. Whoa, they were just like in the low 3s not that long ago. So above 4, just remember, every time the interest rate ratchets up another 1/8 of a point, the price that people can afford to pay comes down because more of that money goes to interest, and so they can't pay as high a price because everyone lives on the monthly. So these are the indications. It's like what Kyle Bass said yesterday. I played those 2 little snips for you. Can't last forever. This has been the biggest explosion of fiat credit ever. Can't last. He's given it 18 to 24 months. They had to pick a number, but they started placing bets in the market to protect themselves back in 2010. And they said then, in 3 years, you'd see cracks in the system. This is a crack. We're looking at the cracks. Recognize what you're seeing. This is fabulous. And thank you, Lorraine. This is the link she sent me. And I was able to have enough time, just barely enough time, to get the actual website so that we know how to submit our tips. Because right at the very end it says, oh, and if you want to submit a tip, send it to blah, 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 blah. And you can't even understand what he says. Wait, say that again. I found it for you.
It has been the crime of the century. For Arizona, this is a huge problem, and it's not going away.
Thousands of families in Arizona are losing their homes to illegal foreclosures based on forged documents. Yet nobody's been prosecuted for using forged documents in our courts.
So tonight, ABC 15 investigator Dave Biskobing asks the Attorney General why the laws that make using forged documents in court a crime don't seem to apply to banks foreclosing on Arizona homeowners.
There's been a really major effort to clean up that situation.
But victims of illegal foreclosures and their lawyers disagree.
I contacted the AG's office to say, look, I'm a victim, look at my documents, look at everything that's happened to me. I haven't even heard from the AG's office.
Gabriella Westphal is a mother who's been fighting for 4 long years to keep her family in their North Phoenix home.
Can't tell them day to day whether we'll get kicked out of the house. I don't know if I'll come home to an eviction notice on the door or not. You know, there's a lot of good memories here.
She says she never missed a payment, but after asking for a modification, the bank took steps to foreclose. And for a cop and a former detective with 25 years on the force, Gabriella detected a problem and discovered
it's signed by Linda Green.
The now infamous signature of Linda Green was all over her foreclosure file. Sound familiar? At one time, Green was an employee of a document processing company called DocX. Court records show Green's signature was forged in tens of thousands of foreclosures across the country. Her name was signed as if she were an executive at dozens of different banks. She wasn't, and she wasn't alone. It became known as the robo-signing scandal.
I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed in the system, and I'm disappointed in the way things were handled. I think that there was a group of people that got greedy, and they found a way to make money, and they stole from American citizens.
What it really means is fraud on the court. Fraudulent documents being recorded against people's real property.
These people were really just seriously ripped off.
Dan McCauley and Beth Vinson are attorneys fighting for the victims of fraudulent foreclosures. They say fake document mills like DocX were set up to quickly fabricate and forge documents, and those bogus records were used by lenders in court to foreclose and push people out of their homes.
They would have a room where people went in and sat down and just signed documents all day long. They just made what they needed and had them sign.
Both attorneys say all of the homeowners they represent are in court fighting foreclosures based on forged documents. They're not deadbeats. They're homeowners who paid faithfully. But when they asked for a modification, they were told they had to stop paying for 3 months. When they followed that advice, the banks denied a modification and foreclosed.
The homes are being stolen.
It's really a significant and widespread problem.
DocX agreed to pay more than $100 million in a national settlement and to stop creating bogus documents.
The Attorney General was quick to join the DocX settlement and grab a share of the money for victims in Arizona. But when I sat down with Tom Horn here at his office to talk about the use of fraudulent documents in court, you might be surprised to hear he referred to it as a shortcut, and that it doesn't necessarily mean a foreclosure is wrongful.
In the process, there was maybe a document that was signed by somebody signed it in somebody else's name as a shortcut, but in the underlying transaction, there's no injustice. The person didn't make his payments.
If the homeowner is going to come in and fight their foreclosure and forge their own documents, they're going to jail. So I don't know that they're going to be so sympathetic to your argument that the underlying premise is that they still didn't pay, because many people did pay and then they still were foreclosed on with fraudulent documents.
Well, don't misunderstand me. I'm not being sympathetic with fraudulent handling of documents, but what I'm explaining to you is that the fact that there was a fraudulent document may or may not mean that the foreclosure itself is wrongful.
Does that mean Horn thinks the use of forged documents is permissible in foreclosure cases? The question caused him to pause and check with an assistant.
Let me just check, am I getting this right?
That's a real problem for me.
We asked Dan McCauley to watch our interview with Horn. McCauley says permitting forged documents in court
May or may not mean
allows fraud to flood our legal system.
It just stuns me. The issue is it a legitimate foreclosure? Is this the real owner? All the cases I've reviewed, the documents are absolutely forged and fake. And that needs to be addressed by the system.
And if it isn't addressed, the fake and forged documents are something Macaulay and Finson say could be a huge problem in the future.
Public records are a disaster area. That might sound dry to some, but that's a big deal. This could have ramifications for years to come.
Unfortunately, throws everybody's chain of title into question now. We don't know who owns what.
That's exactly what Gabriella is dealing with right now. After fraudulent docs were filed in her case, bank after bank lined up in court to claim they own her house.
How many people claim to have owned it? Probably 6 to 8 different banks. I don't know who I'm supposed to pay my mortgage to because we don't know who owns the mortgage.
And as behind it, we always see families affected.
Always.
If you want to watch all those stories on illegal foreclosures, just visit abc15.com/investigators.
And if you've got a tip about illegal foreclosures with forged documents, send it to ABC15 investigator Dave Biscabine at dbiscabine@abc15.com.
The complete...
So here is that website. This is ABC15, and this is the Submit a Tip page. And you can obviously go to abc15.com/investigators. And this happens to be about the investigations. Here's the forged documents, foreclosure help too little too late. You're welcome to watch them. And here's some of the other videos that they were talking about. What is just so astonishing to me is that the Attorney General would actually just say, you know, what he said, that it doesn't have any meaning. And it is truly outrageous because it violates the penal code in Arizona. All of these forged documents, every last one of them is a felony and violates the penal code. In California, it's 115. And it's probably a similar number because this is a uniform commercial code. The penal codes are like the same, similar, and you can just find them by Googling in any state. So when they want a tip, so submit a tip, submit right here. And if you're just watching and I don't have the comments up yet, if I have the comments, just click right there, put this on pause and submit your forged documents, or at least your story. At least send an email and say, you know, my property is this and they forged these documents on my property. And it doesn't matter where in the nation you are. The bottom line is this is national. This is a national disgrace and criminal RICO. It should be RICO prosecution because these are crime families. This is cartel. And here, I wanted to make sure that you had the link for this. This is my Attorney General presentation of the Recon Trust documents on 18 homes in California. And this happens to be the YouTube presentation, so you can send this anywhere. It should work for everybody. And here, right here, this was published on March 15. This is the 18 foreclosure document worksheets. So when you send the link to the video, all the worksheets are going to be there. And this is what the worksheets look like. And so just real quickly, I'm going to review what that means, what these things mean, so that you have some understanding and you can explain to your family, friends, neighbors, Facebook people what these worksheets actually represent. And remember, it's item number 4 on my foreclosure defense page. These are like DIY foreclosure strategies, do it yourself. And they, on I believe it's item number 4, where you analyze your recorded documents. These are the 18 worksheets that I did. Now, what I took off the property address because we're going to preserve some privacy in this. But the fact is, it's real easy. I just did these worksheets. So here's the deed of trust. MERS was both a nominee and a beneficiary. That's what that my little shortcut means. It's both. It's the rabbit and the tiger, okay? Which, as I'm going to really focus on next week, The fact that MERS is involved is just a red flag for fraud. It's the only reason they ever put it together was for fraud. They'll claim a zillion other reasons like, oh, we needed to transfer them back and forth and couldn't possibly record. No, it was for the fraud. So here's the original lender, here's the original trustee, and then here I've listed a correct mortgage-backed security assignments go from the originator O to the S seller to the D depositor to the T, the trustee. And then here's the master servicer. So in this case, on this item, on this property, over here are the problems. The fakeness, the forgery, the fraud. And the black is a little checklist for the owner when you do it. Do I need to check the notary signatures? Do I need certified docs for notary complaints? Do I have signer signatures to check with the journal entries? You know, what is my task list to do? And on the items of fakeness, A, proof of false notarization. B, proof of forged signer. C, assignments recorded after the notice of default. D, servicer as assignee beneficiary. It's totally illegal. E, impossible beneficiary, or fake attorney in fact, or fake agency designation, or missing and false substitutions. Assignments filed after the mortgage-backed security trust cutoff date. They all did that. Every last one of them is totally illegal. And we finally got a ruling in New York last week about that. That's why we talked about it. Use of defunct lenders. So here are the links. This happens to be the PSA, pooling and servicing agreement for this particular property. And then what I did down here at the bottom, we just listed them. So here's the first thing. I listed them in order of being recorded. So you have the type, assignment, when it was recorded, the number, the date, who signed, who was the beneficiary or trustee, who was the signer, what was the title, and this is just a spreadsheet of data from the documents. And I have those little videos, you can follow along. I'm sure a lot of people that are watching this have already done it, but help others that haven't done it. And so anything that's yellow is defective. Well, this assignment is defective because this is a fake beneficiary. The Bank of New York Mellon, formerly known as Bank of New York, as trustee for the certificate holders. MERS, first off, has absolutely nothing to do with securitization. And that's the fraud. But nevertheless, whether it was a bank, let's say it was a bank that assigned the beneficial interest to the trustee of the trust. Doesn't happen. See, let's go back up here. It goes from the originator to the seller to the depositor to the trustee. So there is never, ever, ever on any assignment in the planet, all assignments in the world that go from a bank, from something other than the depositor to this trustee of a mortgage-backed security is fake, false, illegal, violates the pooling and servicing agreement, and proves they have no standing in court. They have no authority to foreclose, and that is why no matter what they promise and say, oh, I'll never do robo-signing, that's not true. They cannot foreclose without forging the documents, and that is vital that people understand. I'm delighted that there's some movement in Arizona about it. So please take that link, send that link out to people, send the tips. I've already started my email that I'm going to be sending my tips into as soon as I can get the investigator's email address. They didn't spell it, so I don't know how to spell his name. As soon as I get that, I'm going to be sending this link to them. We must do this, and we must send it out to all the media contacts we have. We must constantly harp on this. And this is not the weather manipulation harp. This is, we need to create a massive sound. So I guess it is sort of like harp-like, to everybody we know that all of the securitized loans, all their foreclosures are based on forged and fraudulent documents. And exactly what they said in this little video, this little snippet of news article, it's broken, it's clouded every chain of title. Every last title is clouded. In fact, MERS now in some states is being viewed as a title clouding issue. Just the use of MERS in the deeds of trust goes, oh boy, now we don't know what we're going to find, because all the documents are just a mess. They're a fake mess. That is what it is. And the fact that the Attorney General in Arizona acts like that, I'd fire him in like a heartbeat. If he doesn't understand the statutes in Arizona, then what right does he have? What good is he in the Attorney General's office? Get rid of him. That's my advice to you guys in Arizona. Now, they're still doing the same thing. So I got this little article this morning. This is happening right here in California, in Sacramento at Citrus Heights. And I have not yet been, I spent about 30 seconds trying to find the address for this homeowner. And I haven't been able to locate it because they just gave her name. And I don't know what property it was. The bank may already be on title in where I search. So if you can help and help get me this property address, I promise you, I will get her documents. I will do that worksheet for her and her attorney, Jan Dunsing of Sacramento. So after the show, I will probably try to find an email for Jan to try to find the property address, because I know, well, I'm pretty confident, that if she really understood the forgery, I swear there's forgery on this property. And remember, the forged documents only show up once they file a notice of default, not when you're in limbo land. Let's get that really clear. So a person is told, you gotta stop making your payments, and so they stop making the payments, and so then they get dinged by the debt collectors for 60 days. And then the debt collectors go away because the insurance policy has paid off on that mortgage-backed security. So actually the note is now paid at some level, some portion, it's been done. So now the bank is free, the servicer is free to go, okay, let's just go take this. And so a person may be sitting in the house anywhere from 30 days to 2-3 years, not paying, no nothing, it's silent, what's going on? And I call that limbo land. They're sitting in the house, no documents have been filed, nobody's calling them. It's like they're just shoved in they're just shoved into a backwater, because that's what they are. They're just shoved over here, and we're not going to think about you right now because we're worried about these other things. And so that homeowner just sits there until all of a sudden, at some point in time, they get like probably 5 or 10, or I've heard as high as 20 of the same documents. So it's very intimidating, because each one says, a notice of default's been filed. And they open it up time after time after time. Well, they only filed one, but they blizzard the mail out on the homeowners. And so then the homeowners just stop opening the letters. It's like, oh, I don't want to even look. So they don't. They just throw it out. And they don't know what to do. They're scared to death. They don't know where to turn. And they're embarrassed. They think it's their fault. And so they don't know how to fight. They don't know anything. This is why we need to let people know, if you're not paying your loan, right now, start doing it yourself, some of these foreclosure defenses. Because one of the things that will stave off even the filing of a notice of default is the qualified written request, the OCC complaint. Some of that will work, because basically it's like sticking a sign outside your house that you have a security system, even if you don't. The robbers cruise the street and they go, easier pickings. I'll look for easier pickings. So everybody's do-it-yourself defense is make it really nasty and tough to come after you. They'll go to somebody else, sorry. So right now, that is who you're trying to compete against. All the owners are trying to compete against each other to keep their homes and make it too tough to prosecute and go after them. So the banks, the servicers will go someplace else. And so this, I swear, if I was able to get the property address, I can get the documents. I know there's fraud. I know there's something going on here that's not legal. And so I could give that information to Jan, her attorney, and that might be real helpful in getting something, some settlement, some maybe threat of wrongful foreclosure. I have a connection that's been still going after trying to get settlement because she's totally wrongfully foreclosed. Totally, the documents are completely messed up. She paid loan mod for 2 or 3 years. They took the house anyway. I mean, it's just egregious. And so just a couple of days ago, I put all this stuff together. I'd already done her worksheet. I've sent that to the people that are representing her and saying, you know, the bank wants to give her $4,000 to go away. They stole her house. And I'm thinking, you know, in the Homeowner Bill of Rights, it's $50,000 or treble damages. So I suggested, hey, you go after them for a minimum of $50,000, but I would actually threaten a lawsuit with millions of dollars in punitive damages because they violated all the laws, all the documents are fake, besides they get notoriety and news. And if you're gonna negotiate, you gotta come in with a very strong platform so that you can settle somewhere that makes some sense. Word to the wise. So if you can help me, this is going on right now. This is just published today. So help me out if you can with the property address or some emails for her or her attorney, because my time is limited. And any kind of this backup research giving me this information, I'm willing to do the document layout and the analysis and order those docs and do that. But I look to you for help. So here now is a legal recourse that we do have. We can sue for our Fourth Amendment violations. I think we need to really look at this closely. And it says down here that there are several takeaways from this story in the context of invasive federal domestic spying programs. 1, federal law enforcement personnel who utilize such programs to violate Americans' Fourth Amendment protections have good reason to fear legal recourse because even though suing the government is difficult, it can be done successfully against federal law enforcement personnel acting on behalf of the government. We go after the people. We go after them individually. And then the Supreme Court has pierced the government's veil of sovereign immunity. It's now possible to sue federal law enforcement personnel working in their official capacities as if they were ordinary citizens. Furthermore, SCOTUS has recently ruled that a federal law enforcement agent's legal authority can also waive his sovereign immunity. In other words, lower-ranking agents, the ones who are often tasked with violating the Fourth Amendment's rights and protections, have a lesser chance of being granted sovereign immunity than higher-ranking officials with special clearances. And so, we already know that even though, honestly, you and I have nothing to hide, when they know everything about us, they can change that information, they can make claims that are false, and who's going to be able to know? Who will be able to fight back? They can make up all kinds of stuff on anybody and everybody. Besides, if they know all of your habits and exactly where you go, then you run and you cross them and you get somebody that doesn't like you, then you run the risk of like Michael Hastings, where they, it's probably an assassination. How do I know? But just from that one picture, they claim he hits the tree, but it's the back trunk that's all burned. Well, that raises questions. I wanted to also update you today. I have so much information on my Homeowners for Justice website, and it is what it is, and I've struggled with trying to coordinate and organize it. But this is the bank fraud, and this is under crime history. And it's called Crisis of Fraud. It's the first one. And the fact is, what this page is a summary of the various foreclosure town halls I did last year. I haven't been doing them because basically I researched, did the discovery, did the town halls. It is what it is. We now know that. This year, it's like, how are we going to fix it and make the change? So here's a foreclosure crisis overview. Here's a short paragraph of that overview. Here's one of the key slides that I show in my presentation. It's the heart and cycle of bank fraud. Banks are in the middle, and this is, you start here, how they created, insured, and sold mortgage-backed securities with no loans, so they lied to the investors, lied to the insurers. How they created and sold toxic loans to the borrowers, so they designed these loans to blow up, so they cheated the borrowers. They violated all the truth in lending laws. They made gobs and gobs of money at each of these steps. Then they shoved this information into a database with no controls, so they could hide the records, they can change them at will, they cheat all the recording fees. If they had done, they still could have done securitization correctly, but it would have required them to do all these X'd out lines. It would have required them to put the loan assignments into the mortgage-backed securities before they closed. They didn't, so they cheated the investors. It's insurance fraud, oh yeah, and also IRS fraud. They should have, the long-term mortgage-backed securities should have had collateral, so there's no collateral. So that's the tax fraud, because they're not long-term investments. They were basically just no collateralized investments with nothing in them to back the money, the investments. They violated the pooling and servicing agreements, and this is what led to the bank run on Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns in 2008. The investors found out they didn't have any collateral, and so everybody wanted to have all their money back. And so when you have $500 billion a day wanting to be pulled back out of these shadow banking accounts, oops, not enough money. And so then what happened over here, so they double used the loans, so they didn't put them in the securities, they used them as collateral for short-term, lines of credit and backing in the shadow banking system. When this all blew up, the people stopped paying, the loans exploded as they knew they would. They designed them to explode and fail. So then they had to say, well, foreclosure. So now we have to robo-sign the documents. We have to fraudulently create these documents any way, shape, or form we can, make beneficiary names that sound really good and legal, which are completely fake and illegal, record them, and of course we already knew, this was last year, that 84% of the foreclosures were based on something wrong with the documents, and yet nobody yet has prosecuted anybody or gone back and negated those foreclosures. It's just truly astonishing and outrageous. No notarizations, no affidavits of veracity. That's, we're just sitting wide open. They can steal with impunity, is what they're doing. And then, of course, they foreclose. They steal the homes because the loans are already paid. They pocket the money. We don't even know who really owns the home, because the fact is there are no owners. And so when the banks just take it, they've clouded all the titles, and of course they get all the insurance money. We already know that they actually leveraged each note. We're going to talk about this some next week, I hope, because one of my connections has discovered that her loan was a $500,000 or $750,000 loan, whatever it was, something like that, was actually worth $7.5 or $15 million or something in the mortgage-backed securities. I mean, this is now proof of what we've been told is happening, and I've not been able to get proof, on my hands on proof. But absolutely, they went 30 times. So if you borrowed $300,000, then they insured it for $9 million. So that's what I say. The banks got paid over and over and over and over and over. Now they're taking your house and getting paid again, and they're pushing you under the bridge. And this is truly a planned, fraudulent theft of our land. This is the point, and they planned this from the 80s. And then below this, these 12 steps of bank fraud, I started with this on my first foreclosure town hall. And so I just wanted you to take a look at it. Of course, they cheat the county recorder's offices. They circumvent the SEC. They bought off the ratings agencies. Gee, we saw proof of that just 2 days ago, or yesterday. They commit insurance fraud. They cheated investors out of the collateral. They cheated the IRS with a tax dodge. They cheated truth in lending, criminally disregarded truth in lending. They cheated the borrowers, stole the investors' money, fraudulently foreclosed on all the homes so they could take the houses, steal the houses for more money, and cheated the taxpayer because they got TARP to pay off lawsuits and and never used HAMP. So this is just a summary that I've forgotten about. Basically, I remember it, but so many of my connections and contacts right now haven't even seen it. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. It's super important. Send this link to everybody on the planet. the fact is, we know the answers. We just need to get the answers out. So literally, let's send these links to every media station. And after the show today, I will update, on that searchable document. I will put this media link right on top because it's the most current, and it really talks about the heart of the fraud. This is the point, and it is something they cannot remove from our records. We've got them. We just need to make it work. So here's some other guides and some helps. Nolo Press. This is a website, NOLO.com. And this is do-it-yourself legal books. They're ebooks. You can buy them as an ebook and just download it and have that information as a PDF on your computer right now. You can put it on a thumb drive, take it with you. You can search. These are searchable optical character recognition type documents. And like I was telling this other connection, when I mentioned this last night, I said, I now, if someone gives me a book and I cannot get it in ebook format, I have been known, I do this now, I cut the spine off, trim the pages, scan it on my scanner, optical character recognition, so I have it as an ebook. Because you can open that up, you can search, let's say you search for MERS in the book. Boom, it shows up all the places where MERS is, and some input about how what the sentence is about that. It's a fabulous way to research ebooks. So I have this open right now to the foreclosure page, and I want to point out that these foreclosure books are written by attorneys, and they are not going to discuss securitization, but they will discuss the basic how foreclosures used to work. A legal foreclosure works, how it really works legally. And then, of course, the bottom line is when you don't have legal documents to foreclose, turns out right now we can't get restitution by stopping the foreclosure, which is truly mind-boggling. And I understand those attorneys just shaking their head going, how can this be? Because I have connections from all over the country that will say, yes, but look, I have all these, just like the lady in the little news article. All of my documents are forged, so I sent it to the Attorney General, and they haven't even sent me a letter back. That's the problem. Now, here is something I also wanted to just put out there. I hope this is a myth. I have not been able to verify, but it is not the first time that this has been said to me. And in fact, one of my connections claimed, and I don't know if they were making this up or not, who knows, they claimed that the notes, the reason we didn't have the notes is because they were being sent to China. I don't know. How do we verify this? And so let's get Anonymous to hack into somebody's computers and find out for us, will you? So if Anonymous is listening, come on, we need your help. But this is fascinating because could it actually happen? Could somebody like Obama actually, the federal government, give assurances to China that if and when we default as a country, we'll just eminent domain all the property and give you the titles? Can that happen? Because a government, I've been telling you, this is why I wanted to bring up eminent domain and why I believe that this is a power. This is another link on my Homeowners for Justice page. It's right under activism solutions, and it's loan eminent domain. And the reason I call it loan eminent domain is because so many people are confused, thinking that eminent domain is just about the property, the physical title, ownership of that property. And that's usually how it's used. Like they're using it right now in Central California for eminent domaining parcels, land, so they can put in the bullet train. And that's a legal power that all government has. So our cities have it, our counties have it, our state has it, the federal government has it. And this is what is worrisome to me. If the federal government eminent domains, it's over, because they're going to take all the land. Even if they eminent domained all the loans, then we would have to pay the federal government our loan payments. So So that's going to go off someplace else out of our community. That's what I was saying and have been a proponent, really pushing for an eminent domain at the county level. They forged all these documents. We know they don't have proof of foreclosing. They don't have proof that they own these notes, and it's only owners that get paid for what is eminent domain. So the county eminent domains sends out a letter. I'm going to take this note. I'm going to take your loan if you want. Sign right here if you want me to take your loan. And then lets the servicer know we eminent domain that loan. So if you want to get paid, have the lender give us proof of ownership, will you? And so, you wait your 30 days for proof of ownership, and of course they cannot prove it because we already know they cannot prove it. They do not own these loans. So therefore, for an administrative fee, the county gets the loan, the contract rights, and can just send you a nice little letter in that same one saying, okay, when we're going to seize this loan and market value for the property is X, and the new principal amount will be 0.8X, and we will subtract all of the down payment that you used to buy the property, and so that will be a new principal loan, 2%, 30-year fixed, and if you want that, just sign right here. Person says, oh my goodness, I've gotten a gift from heaven, signs, sends it back in, next month starts paying the county. This is why it is such a powerful program. It is, and it will work. It will work. I know it will work, because when Nevada, just look around at the examples. I think I said this before. When Nevada put an affidavit of authority, in other words, you can't file any foreclosure documents without some attorney writing in their license number and saying, yes, we do own the note, and I swear to it. I'll verify that we do. They stopped filing the foreclosures. You kidding me? No attorney is going to go to prison for felony, because that's what it would be. There would be a fine and a felony and prison time for lying in Nevada. And so the foreclosures just stopped because they don't own the note. That's why they forge all the documents. So on this page, what I've got is a proposed speech. This is a 3-minute speech that can be read to the county supervisors. In fact, it can be demonstrated that defaulted securitized loans have already been paid by others, so here's a link for that. And so here's the Hockett paper on eminent domain of mortgage loans. This was the professorial analysis of the laws, and could mortgage resolution partners actually, get a government agency like a county board of supervisors to implement this? And of course the answer is yes. And down here is my response when mortgage resolution partners did go down to San Bernardino County, met behind closed doors, tried to bribe those people into eminent domaining loans that were underwater, but the people were still making their payments, for Pete's sake, and their loan had been put into a non-insured security. So basically you got bigger investors trying to steal from littler investors. It's just a humongous misuse of governmental power, and this is what I've written about. And so the fact is, however, that it is positive if we considered eminent domain appropriately and shrewdly used by counties and states. The counties or states don't need to access private money to modify the mortgages. You kidding? They don't have to pay anybody. We already know. Now we've got some rulings that, and some proof. All of these audits prove they don't own the rights. So let's just move ahead and start taking these loans, and let's do this quickly so that the people can have their properties stop getting foreclosed on, stop getting booted out, and these can be used to institute our public banks, and hopefully this will help protect us against any other kind of massive taking on the part of the federal government of our properties and our rights. So I appreciate you watching. This is an update for Friday. We're going to have to really work hard this weekend sharing all of our links. Please use these links. Please send these leads and tips and stories about your issue to the media, even though it's in Arizona. Let's support Arizona. Let's make this come out nationwide some states got to lead the way, and maybe the rest of our news media will join and decide that maybe it is something to think about. Maybe this is not right. Anyway, this is what we're going to be doing today and the weekend. Our work's cut out for us. Thanks, guys. And everything we do, let's bugger them and let's move into systems that support you and me, the people, that are fair and balanced and truly appropriate.
When I was a lass, I was proud of my class, like my father and mother before me.
They taught me to fight for my civil rights,
but it's always the same old story.
the rich reign supreme while the poor can but dream,
Under Labour or Liberal or Tory. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
The system is bent and the money's all spent. We're badgered from every direction.
The workers get taxed while the wealthy relax, with nary a moment's reflection.
where there's brass, there's muck,
And they don't give an arse, 'cause they're programmed against insurrection. And I say, bugger the bankers and politicians, bugger the bureaucrats too, bugger the buggers who make up the rules, and if you're one of them, bugger you, and if you're one of them, bugger you.
Now all you good people with passion to vent, don't give up the struggle for justice. But I've done my time on the protesters' line, and these days I show my dissent.